Hey guys, what's up? Before I get started with this next video, I do want to apologize for being a little missing in action for the last couple of weeks. There have been a lot of stuff going on in my personal life that I've been dealing with, and on top of that, I've been getting a lot of issues sorted out in terms of my video production. But the good news is, I did recently get a new desktop. So expect this year for me to have way more videos to come out at a faster rate, thanks to my brand new equipment that has been working wonderfully for me, despite some of the issues I've been having at first. But now that I have that out of the way, I want to get started, as another year has gone by in our crazy new decade known as the 2020s. I've seen a ton of ups and downs in the movie industry within the past few years, and in 2023, it was no exception. This was a very weird year when it comes to industry practices, and one with a lot of frustrating moments between how artists have been treated versus how studio execs are acting. It leaves a lot to be worried, and I share those same sentiments as soon as we can shift away from the of all old then I think we can get to a better place than we are now. Cause honestly, thanks to a lot of great talented people working in film, from directors, writers, actors, animators, etc., we got films unlike any other from this year. Though that also begs the question, after 2022 delivered us such an incredible year of cinema with some of the best movies around, could the movies of 2023 even compare to what was the next level of cinematic greatness that we got in 2022? Honestly, yes. Twenty 2023, despite being a lot of industry frustrations and even some dumpster fire films still in our line of vision this year, managed to be an incredible year for some of the most significant movies that have given a new perspective on art. I mean, it was the year the Mario movie came out, and that took the world by storm. Can't get much more significant than that. But even outside of the film and enjoyment a visit to the Mushroom Kingdom was, 2023 was filled with so many great movies that I didn't think would even be possible to have. There were plenty of game changers, new talent, and mind-blowing movies that reminded me yet again on why the art of cinema is so important. From animated masterpiece to new definitions of blockbusters, from underrated gems to successes that were 100% earned. I'm going to talk about, yet again, my personal favorite movies that came out in 2023. This time with 15 movies. There was so many good stuff, I couldn't just regulate it to 10. And before we get started, I wanted to quickly give a few honorable mentions to my list. Those being Elemental, Bottoms, Evil Dead Rise, Chicken Run 2, John Wick 4, Dream Scenario, and Anatomy of a Fall. Now with that out of the way, it's time to get started. These are my personal favorite movies of 2023. And we're going to get started with one of the most iconic pairs of reptilian heroes in animation form.
Hey, you were expecting maybe the Addams Family? Good one.
So, 2023 has been quite a year for the Ninja Turtles for me. Not only did I check out a few Turtles related things with the rise of TMNT series and movie, which are both pretty great, and TMNT's Shredder's Revenge, which is also pretty awesome, not gonna lie. But the main thing to come out that's new from this property this year that made the cut on my list is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. I've always been a rather casual fan of the series, but this year definitely made me a bigger one, and Mutant Mayhem really elevated that big time. A stylistic animated feature that takes the Spider-Verse formula and make it fitting for this rad feature with our 4 favorite turtles. It has great action, some awesome visuals, and a radical soundtrack. It makes this one of the better versions featuring these characters, especially in recent memory. Though not to say that other recent TMNT stuff is bad. Like I said, Shredder Revenge and Rise of TMNT are also worth checking out too, cause they're awesome. In fact, all 3 of these things give these reptiles the perfect amount of justice to this long-running property. What other way to start off a 2023 celebration of rad movie than one that will definitely make you scream, cowabunga.
It is your fault. You were supposed to be looking after me. I told you to stop. You said you washed your hands of me. No, I meant it metaphorically.
A film that's very much a prime contender for a new Christmas classic. The Holdovers is absolutely charming in every sense of the word. A film about a professor having to watch over one of his students for the holiday season. And it's a premise that does sound destined for hijinks. It does have a dynamic duo appeal, but what really makes it work is how real everything feels, from the emotions and situation dealt with in a rather touching family drama. It highlights how one person can make it different, but in a way that isn't cheesy. Instead, it shows the harsh realities and how our characters go through with these personal troubles of self-doubt and even family issues. All led by Paul Giamatti, who does a really great job. And this is certainly one memorable character to add to his filmography. He's the perfect kind of actor to play a Christmas grump. And this character and the story he goes through is one very touching one that I recommend big time. If you haven't seen The Holdovers yet, give it a watch. It's going to be one to remember, and even a potential Christmas tradition movie. So check it out by then at the very least.
Save me.
Save me, my dog.
The final movie from legendary animation director Hayao Miyazaki, and it's fantastic. It's also what was said about The Wind Rises about a decade ago. Okay, as annoying and easy to make fun of Miyazaki going in and out of retirement as it is, you can't complain too much, because this is a man who's clearly a master at his work. He can definitely make a better film than I ever could, and he brings us another really fantastic and visually stunning piece of work with The Boy and the Heron, also known as How Do You Live? Miyazaki brings another very personal and beautiful movie that really discusses the themes of grief in a way that only he could bring out. It's an impressive feat of work that I'm very happy to see be getting the attention it deserves. In a year where animation has gotten a lot of industry issues and also some disappointments in the mix, it's incredibly nice to see one of the true masters come back to show everyone how it's all done in this gripping World War II themed masterpiece. A great film that I really want to check out again, and maybe even in English. I only saw the Japanese dub, which was really good, don't get me wrong, but I'd be curious to watch this in English, if for no other reason is to hear Robert Pattinson take on that interesting voice performance.
My dog.
Which, side note, I really hope this will lead to Pattinson getting cast in the role he was born to play as, Shadow the Hedgehog. Come on, Sonic 3. He's absolutely perfect for the role. Needs to happen. Outside of that, Boy and the Heron, or How Do You Live, is worth watching, and a good contender for one of the best animated films of the year.
Who do you think they are to each other?
I don't know.
Much like the past couple of years for movies, A24 has brought the world a ton of revolutionary and bold movies of all sorts of variety, from the strange and out there to the emotionally deep and resonant. They've had another great year of films for them. Here we have one of the more emotionally deep ones with their sleeper hit, Past Lives. A film that's very quiet and minimal, but director Celine Song made a beautifully poignant movie. One that really emphasizes the importance of human connection and all the significance that comes with it, from beauty to tragedy. Incredibly acted and written to where these characters feel real, and you're captivated by such a heartfelt bond by these characters who've known each other for such a long time. With a film that I'm still thinking about even after only seeing it once. Past Lives certainly sticks with me, and it's 100% deserved. An excellent work that, much like other A24 movies, I'll still remember even long after 2023.
You can't wake up if you don't fall asleep. You can't wake up if you don't fall asleep.
Of course, a Wes Anderson movie was going to be on the lookout for movies of 2023 for me. Thankfully, this one is pretty excellent. Even after so many claimed that it's just another Wes Anderson movie, the response was still, it was a pretty damn good movie, because Asteroid City works so well. It does have the typical quirks of Wes's style, but it's helped even further thanks to the film really playing with its story structure and characters, being a film all about experiencing the best and worst moments of your life and trying to cope with all of that. The way it jumps around and manages to be so meta about itself works thanks to the wonderful direction that Wes continues to showcase here, and a stacked cast that makes this dialogue so humorous. From Wes Anderson regulars like Jason Schwartzman, along with new additions like Margot Robbie and Tom Hanks, make this an unsurprisingly good cast to follow. They all do an awesome job making these characters work in a very outlandish world with so many good set pieces, visually stunning in every frame, and even very heartfelt at points. Asteroid City is definitely one not to pass through when going back to watching the films from 2023. And if that's not enough to convince you that this movie is worthwhile, it has a stop-motion alien and a puppet roadrunner. Clearly, this is the kind of stuff cinema was made for. One of the main movies you'll see with an atomic bomb and a huge cast of well-known actors, along with one of the biggest hits of the summer of 2023.
And now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds.
Maybe surprisingly low on the list considering how much I love Christopher Nolan as a director, and how many claim for this to be his very best film. It is true that I'm not quite in love with Oppenheimer as much as other people are. I personally like a few other Nolan movies a lot more. But with that being said, if Nolan takes home the Oscar for Best Director just for this movie, I wouldn't be complaining in the slightest. Oppenheimer truly is Nolan's most respectable piece of work to date. The fact that a 3-hour drama that's R-rated and has a lot of courtroom drama managed to make $1 billion this year is insane to me, but completely welcome. When the filmmaking is this good by someone like Nolan, these kind of auteur-driven films are great to see get the success they deserve. It's an important look of the life of Robert J. Oppenheimer that's excellently crafted through the performances, cinematography, and script being some of the finest to ever be in a Nolan movie. Plus, if anything, there is that one incredible scene. Oppenheimer's initial celebration ceremony where you see his reaction to what he caused with the atomic bomb. Genuinely haunting and a scene so fantastic. I didn't think this director had it in him, because this is one of the best scenes he has ever done in a movie, showcasing the horrifying complicity and death that was cause of something he created. This scene makes Nolan's potential Oscar win deserved, and is one of the many reasons why I think Oppenheimer has stood out so well in his filmography. Honestly, can't really complain. Though if there's one minor thing I found a little odd, is a certain talked about scene. Yeah, I know, people have the discourse of these kind of movie moments being too gratuitous and not needed, and is a little much because it's not as bad as they think. And depending on the movie, they're more significant than initially thought. I don't want to turn it into that issue because I understand the purpose. However, Nolan, I love you, but you can't have a guy suddenly have his clothes off in front of a bunch of businessmen while having it be completely played straight and not get a chuckle out of me. I'm sorry, I know I'm like 5, but come on, he's just sitting there so nonchalant about it. It's a little unintentionally hilarious to me. Other than that, great movie regardless.
Here I am, I'm naked. I'm naked.
I'm visiting my mother tomorrow.
One of the most divisive movies of 2023 for sure, as Beau's Afraid certainly had both its fans and haters. Some say it was a unique piece of work that Ari Aster did a great job with. Others say it was too tonally inconsistent and full of itself. Put me in the former category, as I think Beau is Afraid is pretty damn great. It's not for everyone, but the sheer ambition creating one of the biggest dark comedies to ever be put in the theaters is simply mind-blowing. It's an uncomfortable movie that has a lot going on, but if you can get through it, it becomes one of the most visually stunning and intriguing movies you will ever witness. Add in a great performance by Joaquin Phoenix, and you're in for one of the many reasons why A24 has been such a big deal for film lately, and why they have been one of my favorites easily. Even if you end up disagreeing, that's okay. But let's all agree on one thing regarding this movie. It's really nice to see Nathan Lane in movies again. Apparently he's starting to be in more, cause like I said in my teacher's pet video, he's making a comeback this year, and I'm loving him all for it.
You came to school just like a kid, and you're the smartest guy in class and a great athlete, and everybody liked you, but you were my dog, and if anyone ever found out, I'd never live it down.
You aren't healed, my dude.
So here's a big surprise that ended up being a bigger hit than one would initially ever expected. However, not as surprising for me because I have a roommate who's a big Godzilla fan. So this year I watched a ton of movies featuring the most iconic kaiju, ranging in quality, but it's really cool to see Japan's most iconic movie monster in any sort of movie, especially if it's something excellent like this, as Godzilla Minus One manages to top so much of what we've seen other Godzilla movies do, especially with its human characters, which probably are the best they've ever been since the original 1954 movie. It's another World War II centric movie of this year, but it plays around with themes of war and fighting for your loved ones. All this creating for one of the most emotionally captivating Godzilla movies out there. Though the lizard himself does not disappoint at all. The way Godzilla looks in this film and how they executed him is simply a marvel to look at. If you hadn't seen this in theaters, it was totally worth it, because this is on the level of modern day blockbusters. All this cost $15 million, and somehow this looks better than practically every blockbuster that costs over $300 million this year. Insane to think, but also makes me respect the pure craftsmanship of something as awesome as this. Godzilla Minus One. Not much else to say except, Godzilla fans, I'm happy you've been eating good tonight, cause you deserve this. There are plenty of reasons why I felt Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 turned out to be so great. You'd think it wouldn't, being the third in the trilogy, and also at a point where Marvel and Disney have kinda lost their creative touch. I still haven't seen either of the other two Marvel movies from 2023, and can you really blame me? But if there was one that had to be seen, it's the one from the best trilogy with the best director attached. James Gunn did a phenomenal job giving the right sort of ending for this film. An actually touching movie that hits at the right spots thanks to how well defined these characters have been for nearly a decade. It's funny, visually outstanding, and just the perfect summer blockbuster to a trilogy that has been so great. Rocket will always be king of the MCU if you ask me, being one of the most lovable characters of the series, and even gets one of the best lines in the whole trilogy.
You didn't want to make things perfect. You just hated things the way they are.
Honestly, the end of this trilogy makes me perfectly okay with maybe not seeing a new Marvel movie again. Not to say I wouldn't if the right one comes along, but I don't think they can top this finale. Endgame was the perfect ending to the MCU, while Guardians 3 is the perfect epilogue, and honestly, I wouldn't have it any other way. Plus, I'm just excited for James Gunn being the new creative director at DC after how great something like this turned out. DC didn't really have that much better of a year compared to Marvel, but with Gunn being such a great passionate talent who can bring fantastic pieces of work like this and the Suicide Squad, makes me very hopeful for Superman within the next few years. I mean, it certainly has to be better than the CGI one we got in The Flash. Never again! Get that thing away from me. Anyway, great movie. James Gunn rocks.
So, about the job.
What job?
Point is, whatever your dark heart desires, boss, your sidekick has arrived.
Now here's a film I've been wanting to talk about for a while. But first, let's go ahead and briefly talk about Disney for a bit, cause man, for their 100 years of magic, this was not a bright spot. This was one of Disney's lowest grossing years financially in a long time, with so many movies that would usually be hits flopping big time. Oh no, a live action Disney remake didn't make $1 billion. Wait, that's the greatest fucking news I ever heard all day. The same unfortunately went with their animation department. You know, the thing they should be known for instead of this shit.
This is the most obnoxious thing I've ever experienced in my life.
A lot of mistakes were made, leading to some questionable decisions. And one of those was actually making it so the second best animated movie of the year was almost not a thing, as Netflix in 2023 brought back the movie that Disney nearly canceled after shutting down Blue Sky Studio with Nimona. While Wish was fine,
who knew my voice would be this low?
I guess. And Elemental I've grown to like a lot more over time. Neither of these movies could compare with the bombastic and unique piece of work that was meant to be Blue Sky's swan song, an animated film that does a lot more than you would initially think a film ultimately made for kids would do, as this is an animated film dealing with murder, betrayal, and LGBT issues that makes this one of the most interesting and bold story I've seen in a film of this caliber. Creating a narrative that isn't your typical Disney fare and instead challenges it in an awesome way. And it's mostly thanks to this film having one of the best characters I've seen all year with Nimona herself. A shape-shifting druid who has this insane chaotic energy, but is also so lovable due to how expressive she is in indulging in every little neat thing this film has to offer. She even has one of the most heartbreaking backstories I've seen this year. Don't want to spoil too much, but I will say the tragedy also helps add to this film's message about inclusion and being aware of what you might have been told in the past, and that it's not always what they seem. To add to this message even further, Nimona herself is a character that is unapologetic about who she is, even despite being ostracized by others. To see a character like her be the face of queer characters in film this year is awesome, and her movie, even outside of that, is just as good. It has a great unique art style to it, and even has a solid soundtrack to it, which, side note, really appreciate the love for Metric here. Yeah, Oscar-nominated Nimona sounds a lot better than Oscar-nominated Disney Wish, don't you think? Not much else to say about Nimona outside of, if you haven't seen it yet, do so. It's totally worth watching what is, in my opinion, the second best animated movie of the year, and also the second in line to being the most pink movie of the year as well. Either way, definitely take some time to notice one of the true unique forces of animation in 2023. You know a film year is destined to be good when you get something from the legend himself, Martin Scorsese. Some may know him as some old man complaining about Marvel movies. Others know him as Sykes from Shark Tale.
What? 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 Nothing. You said what first?
Or is that just me? But it's clear that he's best known for being a phenomenal director, creating some outstanding pieces of work. And it's no evident than with his newest feature film, Killers of the Flower Moon, a fantastic art piece that not only manages to be well directed with all the great cinematography, editing, and fantastic performances you expect from the director with regulars like Leonardo DiCaprio and newcomers like Lily Gladstone. Not only that, it is also an important film that highlights and brings attention to one of the most underrepresented tragedies in American history, really going in depth with the Osage murders that manages to be so engaging through its long runtime that ends up, in my opinion, feeling shorter than Oppenheimer, despite being a whole 30 minutes longer than that film. If you haven't witnessed Scorsese's bold and ambitious historic retelling, it is a must-watch, especially in this day and age where these kind of stories need to be seen to be believed. Truly an incredible piece of work that makes me glad that we still get excellent, outstanding films in the decade of the 2020s, especially when Scorsese creates a bold thinking piece tragedy like this, even if his disturbing execution of a real-life horror was outshined by the next film on the list. There has never been a film from this year that was as soul-crushingly unforgettable as Jonathan Glazer's masterwork that is The Zone of Interest. From what I've gathered, this is the director that only makes a movie about every decade or so, and I've only seen a couple of his films, aside from this one. Mainly Under the Skin, which is awesome by the way. He already showcased some immense talent with that film, and I think he created something unheard of with The Zone of Interest. A film centered around a family who are a part of the Nazi Party and are all trying to live a peaceful life in Auschwitz. If you know your history, then you definitely know from that description alone, this is not the kind of film that would be upbeat in the slightest. Instead, Glazer takes a subject like the Holocaust, something that's usually portrayed in film in a very somber, tragic outlook, and makes it into one of the most horrific things you would ever witness on film. Not only the best thing A24 has released this year, but I think, no exaggeration, the best horror film we got this year. The way Glazer pulls this off through just artistically crafted visuals and the chilling use of sound is the most horrifying depiction of evil I've ever witnessed on screen. It leads to probably the best ending to a film this year, with an ending shot and score that might be the most unnerved I've been in a film in a long time. An important piece that comes highly recommended. Even though a tough watch, The Zone of Interest is one hauntingly unforgettable mastercraft of bold filmmaking that outs Mad God as the most accurate depiction of hell ever showcased on screen. Yeah, with a movie like that, I definitely need to talk about something way more upbeat. The good news is, the next movie may very well be that.
Girl, you okay?
Of course, the film that took the world by storm this year, even more than the Mario movie, Barbie definitely was a film that I never would have expected to become peak cinema back during my early days of being a film buff. Yet, here we are. This is a film that could have easily ended up just being another poorly made cash grab designed to appeal to the kiddies. Yet instead we get a blockbuster that's not only excellent, but completely different than anything we've gotten prior. Greta Gerwig had already been starting to become a great director in my eyes, but it's this bright and colorful masterpiece is where she really goes full blast with her creativity as a filmmaker. Not only that, she gives it a neat edge, being a clever critique on patriarchy, in a way that feels 100% in good spirit. This movie has a bit of everything, with things I already loved in other movies to the nth degree. It has Margot Robbie being amazingly charming and beautiful as ever in a role of a lifetime. The most fights we've seen Michael Cera in since Scott Pilgrim. And of course, do I even need to say it? Not only does it have all of that, not only is it well made in the vein of some of the other best movies of the 2020s so far, but much like the very best ones in recent memory, this gets the emotional core big time. Rewatching it again, I honestly get a little choked up at certain parts of the film, as it highlights a lot of the joys of experiencing life in general, and how we can make it work. Similar to Everything Everywhere, or even Pixar's Soul, Barbie has a lot of emotional resonance to it, not being afraid to showcase a sentimental side. It also leads to another ending that I think is 100% perfect. The way it highlights why change is important by saying ideas last forever due to how ever-changing they can be, while still maintaining a core value, something like that is very beautiful to hear. It's another great allegory to directors and creative artists making the things they love and people's interpretations of it. To have all of this be centered around Barbie, a thing I never once gave that much of a shit about, and just shrug off as direct-to-video schlock, and making it one of the most touching messages I've heard all year makes this simply marvelous. This movie 100% deserved to be the success it is. And God bless Greta Gerwig, as she has quite a beautiful soul. She's improved so much as a director, and how she hasn't gotten a nomination since Lady Bird, I will never know. Though, nothing against the nominees this year. You all rock. Still, let someone like her direct whatever the hell she wants. She is someone who cements Margot Robbie as movie star status, but also has the artistic passion to showcase what amazing directors like her are made for.
You're so beautiful. I know it.
There is one movie from the summer that managed to be more peak modern day cinema than even Barbie. It is for sure one of the greatest sequels to have ever graced the silver screen. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is a film that is unbelievably good, as in I didn't think we can see the shit pulled off in this movie. This and the Batman proves that the superhero genre can still work and be as awesome as ever. The execution of modern superhero movies this year was pretty pitiful, with okay at best and The Flash at worst. But Spider-Verse 2 not only blows everything from Marvel and DC this year out of the water, but it's on another level of filmmaking perfection that I am ecstatic that this movie managed to be the one to outshine both the live-action Little Mermaid movie and The Flash respectively.
What's wrong with you?
And that is the kind of thing that gives me hope for the future of cinema. From the moment the film starts, it is already a masterclass of filmmaking. The focus on Gwen Stacy, as I stated, cemented her as my favorite character in all of Spider-Man. The story with her dad and how she has to deal with him knowing she's Spider-Woman leads to such a great heart this movie has. It starts becoming next level stuff the second we see the Renaissance style Volter sketch character animation in an action sequence not even 20 minutes into the film, becoming one of the most awe-inspiring action sequences in any movie. Like, Look at this shit! This is a film that was made with 100% effort, and it becomes a movie that I'm always impressed and amazed by during every single viewing. The fact that this is an animated film getting this much attention makes it an absolute win for animation, because this film treats the medium with respect. The story is ever so gripping with so many great themes and character growths throughout the whole thing, and it all leads to a cliffhanger that just makes me excited to see where this finale goes. However, there is a bit of a downside with Spider-Verse 2, as this year hasn't been good for the animation industry in a lot of fronts. It's a shame because animators and artists are the backbone of the industry, and to see all the layoffs and disrespect animators go through in the field they want to be in something, that's disheartening. Treatment of animators could have been a lot better, and I wish I could say Spider-Verse did 100% good for animation in general, but that's the bad news. It has been reported that the team behind the film worked a relentless amount of overtime and were constantly being thrown different changes at the last minute and had crunch time. This isn't good work ethic, and because of stuff like this, there's talk of a strike going on this year, and also an unknown release date of when we'll see this conclusion. As much as I want to see the film continue, I do think the animators and the rest of the team behind this film needs to be paid fairly and treated among respect for all the work they've done. As much as I appreciate the work of Lord and Miller in the past, treat your animators better. This had led to a negative connotation around the film, and while I agree, the treatment of the people who worked on the film is inexcusable, and I want the team to be compensated for their hard work. However, that does not mean they didn't show so much effort in their hard work. Spider-Verse 2 is still a perfect movie. And yeah, it's disheartening to hear about the production troubles, especially when they're unneeded. But that doesn't mean it can't lead to a great film. Spider-Verse 2 is still every bit as perfect as an animated movie can be. It has the right amount of heart, the insane amount of craftsmanship put into some of the most beautiful sequences I've seen in any movie, and by God, how the hell did this not get nominated for Best Original Score? You are some mad fools, Oscars. You wouldn't think they would be able to top a movie as perfect as Into the Spider-Verse, but Lord and behold, they did. And I can't help but think this is just a masterful sequel that ends up being everything right with modern day films. Emotionally satisfying, visually stunning, and just brilliant. This is a work of art. And with 2024 being a year of potential change that I want to see animators and people who can appreciate the art strive for, I think it will be worth it. Sure, it might be a while till we see this trilogy conclude, but you know, when people creating the art get the right amount of time, it will be worth it. Even if topped by just one other movie on this list, I still unironically think this is one of the best sequels and films to ever grace cinema ever. A pure artistic masterpiece. It was a tough call between the emotional core of Barbie and the masterwork that is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. But honestly, if there's one film that represents the perfect kind of film experience I look for, Poor Things is certainly at the top of that list for sure. Directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, who's a director I've actually liked for quite some time now. He has made some pretty out there and bizarre movies with an odd sense of humor and shit that is really fucked up, if I'm being quite frank. I mean, if you ever had to watch Dogtooth in a classroom setting like I did for college, you know what I'm talking about. Nevertheless, despite his films being arguably inaccessible to some audiences, this is a director I've always had an appreciation for. However, I had yet to have seen a film of his that I love 100% of, at least until now with Poor Things. A film that is essentially a Frankenstein retelling, except it's Emma Stone as the iconic Bella Baxter. She's one who acts pretty immature for her age, but there is an outlandish explanation that I'd rather not get into in case you haven't seen it. But it's pretty out there. As the film goes on, we see her perspective of the world, being learned to live in a polite society, all while she discovers her own self-worth. And not to mention, a lot of fun times, if you know what I'm saying. Poor Things already sounded promising for me being an out there premise, but it's also executed through such masterclass. Yorgos' direction is on full blast, being a visually stunning piece of work that utilizes so many different styles and colors all throughout its runtime. The surreal visuals in this never get tiring, since it mixes up its look so many times, and whatever happens is so interesting to watch. It also just helps that it's performed so wonderfully. Emma Stone had already been an actress I love, and this cemented her as one of my top favorites. She does so much in this movie, playing a character that progresses in so many ways throughout the film. She's great at being childlike and sophisticated whenever the film needs her to be. As for as surreal and out there her performance may be for some, she commits and makes it believable. Easily one of her very best roles for sure. And I'm totally cool with her taking home the Oscar if she happens to win. Nevertheless, the performance is excellent, and that goes to the other cast members as well. Mark Ruffalo is hilariously pathetic in this, and he makes his character feel like that it was intended that way. Plus, what's a really great movie without our Lord and Savior of the Last Temptation of Christ, Willem Dafoe?
Among Us.
Even with all of that in mind, the main thing that sticks with me in this movie is its themes. Sure, the ideas of embracing oneself no matter what is nothing new, but with this movie in particular, it feels a lot more significant. And I think it's due to how I interpret a lot of what Yorgos is trying to convey here. Of course, there's definitely discussions on class, feminism, and other social concepts conveyed in this film, but more so than anything else, I feel like this is an allegory to being on the spectrum, or in other words, having autism. The way Bella discovers herself through rather childlike behavior, and as the film goes on, she is also able to challenge the social structure that she is put into because of her being so outside the norm. Her questioning the way proper behavior restricts someone who is also as out there as her makes her journey so captivating to watch. She's the kind of person who, rather than accepting society by how it is, she suggests and attempts to improve it through her own personal journey. It's a journey that, as someone who has grown up with that way of thinking for a long time, I found it to be very relatable. Some might take other interpretations on the themes as a whole, but this film really speaks about the experience about being autistic, and does so in a way that isn't offensive or directly referring it to you. Yorgos Lanthimos made a strange, surreal movie that's every bit as beautiful as a piece of art like this should be. Emma Stone gives a career best performance as the neurodivergent icon, Bella Baxter. And I can't think of another movie that deserves to be at the top of my list, as I haven't seen anything this year that I love more than Poor Things. Okay, that's actually a lie. There is one more project that I feel the need to mention that was from last year. The truth is, Poor Things isn't quite my favorite piece of media I saw last year. Oh no, that's because the actual best thing to come out in 2023 is Scott Pilgrim Takes Off! Oh my god! This is everything. Everything I would have wanted, everything I love about this series, everything that makes animation so awesome in this one little thing, a new adaptation of my favorite comic book series done in animation that's just as good as the movie, which is already a top 3 favorite of mine. There was no doubt that Scott Pilgrim Takes Off is a prime contender for my favorite movie of 2023. Oh wait, it's not a movie, it's a series. So that means it's not on the list. Oh, but don't think I won't be talking about this series at any point soon. Scott Pilgrim is like my favorite thing, like I said. So a video about this was going to be inevitable, just not right this second. But this and many of the other movies I discussed really helped make 2023 a worthwhile year to experience. Sure, there have always been hurdles and obstacles to go through within the year, but thanks to so many great pieces of art made through the power of film, makes those obstacles easier to go through. I love how there was so many things created by very talented people that I just really connected with. There's so many breathtaking visuals, incredible soundtracks, and lovable characters to connect with. Much like last year, there will be plenty of movies from 2023 that will stick with me forever. A true testament to how powerful art can be. And it's one that I intend to continue in 2024. Going to be a very big year for me. And I think with so much on the horizon, there's going to be a lot to look forward to. Maybe some struggles along the way, like I said. Strikes to be expected for the artists, but I think with everyone having each other's back when it comes to this kind of stuff, at the end of the day, we'll succeed. So let's make sure we do our best to make the great aspects of 2023, and more so, to continue on to 2024. So take that for what it's worth.